It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
When receiving an inheritance, you have a wide range of options of what to do with it. Should it be saved for retirement? What about paying off debt or your mortgage? What about Disneyland? We're answering this question from a fan of the show, that and more, on this episode of Wise Money.
Did you do that one for me? You know,
Yeah.
a Disney fan?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, there are lots of Disney fans in the office, and these trips. They have a 30-year payment program.
Oh my goodness!
Where you can.
It is outrageous. If you have a question for the program, we're just hitting questions from fans of the show. We have a couple unbelievable ones lined up. We'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online wisemoneyshow.com is where you can submit questions there. The first two questions we're tackling, they were submitted right there on the website. And then also through social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. Most of the questions come through the YouTube channel, so feel free to check that out as well. Submit questions there. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the great wealth transfer, and that is where, oh my goodness, guys, $70 trillion is set to transition from one generation to the next over the next couple of decades. And, if they're obviously that's an emotional time period, but huge financial decisions you need to be planning ahead and working ahead for, and both not assuming, okay, let's build into my plan that I'm going to receive this big inheritance. No, but just have an awareness. And then, if there is an inheritance, the 10-year rule, the new 10-year rule with IRAs. So does that influence your tax picture? Then and their tax planning right now, lots of big decisions that you need to make.
Yeah, and it's not too early to start having those conversations with your certified financial planner either. And worst case scenario, they tell you, all right, that's good for us to know and to be planning for in the back of our mind, but let's not count on it.
Yeah.
Let's not count on you receiving a big inheritance, and that's going to bail out your own financial plan or help you suddenly reach the goals that you haven't been preparing for. Obviously, we want to make sure that you're on a path to achieve the most important things in your life on your own. But all of a sudden, if there are some inherited dollars that come to you, it can open up new possibilities. It certainly puts more responsibility on your shoulders, more to deal with. It could have some complicating or benefiting impacts on your tax picture and so on. So definitely something to be talking about with your certified financial planner. But you need to gauge together how much influence are you going to let it play in the overall plan itself.
That's right.
Yeah, and I would look at, if you're inheriting $300,000, are you inheriting a $300,000 IRA?
Yeah.
Because if you are, there's something called income in respect to the decedent. So it means the person who you inherited this money from never paid taxes on it, so therefore you will. And there's some rules around doing that. That's very different than inheriting $300,000 of cash, for instance.
All right, so we're already into it, but here's the question. Here's the first question we're tackling. It's from a fan of the show, Jeff, and here's what he said. I'm 62, and I'm about to inherit approximately $300,000. My only debt is my mortgage, which is $195,000. I don't have a car payment. I've got a solid emergency fund saved. The problem is I don't have nearly enough to save for retirement, so I need to squeeze every bit out of this inheritance by reducing taxes, investing it wisely. However, my accountant suggests I should pay off my mortgage, which is only at a 4% interest rate. What do you guys think? So, fantastic question. And Jeff, I love the detail. You know we're geeks, and you know that there's 6 areas to your financial life, and in order to make great decisions, you've got to look at your choices and how they impact all 6 of those areas to bring synergy. And so often, this is why this is not just a question and answer show, because there's so many details that need to go into, well, all right, what are your thoughts on this? Where do you stand with your taxes? Where do you stand with your emergency fund? So while you provided a lot of information, that's super, super helpful. Guys, let's start. What are your range of options? For Jeff, at 62, what could you do with this $300,000? Obviously, the question on the table is, do you pay off the low-interest mortgage? But what are your choices? That's one. You could pay the mortgage off. What else?
You could lend a significant amount of money to one of your family members.
What? That's not what I would have put at number 2.
No, I know, but you said what are the choices, and so
Infinite number, right?
I know, and you could go to Disneyland. I mean, it sounds like Jeff is going to is really focused. It sounds like this is a good time for this money to be entering the picture, and it is. I found it interesting. For a lot of folks, they're going to be inheriting money in their mid-50s to mid-70s from parents and other relatives, and you think, all right, most of the heavy lifting, most of the financial project type stuff is already done, maybe except for retirement planning. And I think the tricky thing with inherited money, you have to ask yourself a few questions. Number one, am I emotionally free to use this money however I want?
Yeah. Or is it sentimental?
Right.
Do you say, I can't touch this? This is, yeah.
Yeah, because if it's coming to me in the form of Apple stock, and my uncle bought Apple stock and held Apple stock, and all he ever wanted me to do was stay invested in Apple stock, am I free to sell the stock and do what's absolutely best? And then if I am free, I think the big question whenever I'm looking at inheritance with folks is this a blessing?
Okay.
A lot of times people feel some sort of burden related to inheriting money, and it feels like there's a lot of pressure to make sure they get it right. And I'd say, all right, what would it look like if this money was a blessing? If this money did let you retire your mortgage, if it did let you fund your retirement plan, these other things? Because for a lot of folks, and I don't know how long Jeff has known this money has been coming, but a lot of times people anticipate for a long time this money's coming. And when it shows up, it's almost anticlimactic. Because $300,000, it sounds like with Jeff, this isn't life-changing money.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah,
You
it could
pay your
be.
mortgage off.
Yeah, so it could be. And so I wouldn't say life-changing money. I would say life-altering money.
I think what you're saying is he's not asking the question, hey, I could retire tomorrow, and I've been dying to retire. If not, without this money, I would have had to work forever. And so he's not saying that. Go ahead.
Well, Kevin asked an important question there. He said, is this a financial blessing? And the alternative could be, the other end of the spectrum, it's a financial curse. And how do you distinguish between the two? And to me, I might define them as, well, it's a blessing if it helps you to accelerate towards the things that are most important and are uplifting and beneficial in your life. It is a curse if it takes you off track from those things. And maybe all of a sudden, that $300,000, you're buying some stuff that you never really, maybe it was a dream once upon a time, you fantasized about that Ferrari or something, but you go buy it and now you're squandering the dollars instead of it actually taking you towards the things that are most important to you. So, a certified financial planner is going to be asking you, well, what are your most important goals? And what were they yesterday? Not what are the new ideas popping into your head right now, right? And, we got some clues here from Jeff's question. He said, I don't have nearly enough saved for retirement. He's presenting that in a way as, oh, this is a problem I haven't solved yet. And so the question then is there something you could be doing with this $300,000 that moves you closer to being ready for retirement? And that could be paying off the mortgage, maybe. Or what if it was building up a growth portfolio that helps carry you through retirement?
I feel like I'm on a talk show with professional question dodgers. The choices, the range of options. I'm teasing. So pay off the mortgage. One, keep the money saved for retirement, set aside for retirement. That seems like the second. Third, spend it, Disney or whatever, right? Fourth, and repurpose the dollars into tax shelters, get some sort of tax benefits. He even said reducing taxes, investing the money wisely. It seems like, and then Kevin, you threw in there, you could then turn around and pay it forward and give it to someone else. Those seems like 5 of the primary choices. So then the question is, how do you know which choice is best? could you do a blending of those 5? And Josh, even though I was joking, I would go back to, what are your goals, and which of those choices accelerates you on the path to those goals? But what's the framework? What's the process? How would you make that choice? Okay. And then would you do some on the mortgage, some here, some there? We're breaking down that question. We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. What are you looking at?
No, go.
Was that first segment?
That's first segment. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning. Also on podcast at the same time. Also on a couple local radio stations at the same time as well, which is why there's segments and we've got breaks and all this sort of stuff. A little awkward, but we've got Next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week right here on this channel. 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long, taking one financial concept, applying it directly to your financial life about, this very thing that we're talking about. What are some strategies to take inherited dollars and filter it into your tax shelters to get a tax benefit out of it, both in the current year, in the future, even multiple generations. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're aware every time we drop new content. And if you like the content, thank you very much. I know I was teasing you. We were not quite out of time or not quite ready to wrap it, and I'm like, does anyone have anything?
No,
okay.
I'm smitten with comparing Grok's answers to ChatGPT, because it is interesting when you ask them the question, how should I, if I'm 62 and I just inherited $300,000, what should I do with it? And it's very interesting to see. I mean, they'll give you a very specific plan, not related to anything in your financial life. But I mean,
other than that, super helpful.
Yeah.
All right, let's answer the question. And answering the question could just mean here's how I would approach answering the question. So
Does that count as an answer, or is that dodging?
Well, I do. I don't know if I don't think you guys saw it, but I said, "What are the choices?" And you both just went, like, "What could you do with this money?" And you guys were everywhere.
Well, yeah, because the choices are everywhere.
I know, but I mean, you were everywhere, not talking about choices. You guys were talking about how you feel and all these other. I'm like, I'm trying to get concrete. Like, what could you do with this money?
No, that's what I'm saying. Because here's the thing: if you're 62 and you have kids, Jeff's kids are saying, "All right, Dad, I know you got that money. I just started my student loan repayment program. Hey, can you pay off my student loans, and then I'll pay you?"
I know. I heard you say you could give it away. And then as soon as it was, you can give it away, it felt like we were off somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
All right, let's consult with Jeff. Let's go.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right, Jeff.
Second segment. Is it wise to pay off a mortgage if you have a low interest rate? That's sort of the fundamental question. We're answering a question from a fan of the show. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Rate the program there as well. We appreciate it. Answering questions from fans of the show. First one here from Jeff, and having a little bit of fun with it, but it is a fantastic question. Receiving an inheritance of $300,000. I'm 62. I don't have any other debt other than my mortgage, which is $195,000, but I'm admittedly behind in my retirement savings. Two questions. What should I do with this money? And then my accountant told me to pay off my 4% mortgage. Is that what I should do? You've got a wide range of choices here, Jeff. How do you decide what's best?
So I have put in my application to be a professional question dodger, but I'm going to try and hit this one straight on.
Accepted.
So, okay. So $195,000 is my mortgage at 4%. My accountant says pay it off. And I think, all right, well, I would then sit down with my financial planner and say, what should I do? And I'd make a T-chart and say the pros and the cons of paying off that mortgage.
I would make that pros and cons list, and then I would build out that retirement plan. What does your 5-factor retirement plan look like if all of a sudden you've been paying $1,500 a month for a mortgage and now you don't have it? If you don't have it and the retirement plan works, then maybe that's what you should do. If your retirement plan works better, if you now have $300,000 saved up for your retirement and you're now able to shoulder better that $1,500 mortgage payment, I would do that. If the goal right now, if your goal is retirement, build out that 5-factor retirement plan and play it both ways. One, you've got a mortgage and $300,000. The other one, you don't have a mortgage, but you don't have the $300,000. The scenario I wondered, well, two of them. I wonder if the accountant is saying this because $300,000 pulled out of retirement accounts leaves you with $200,000, and that's enough to pay out the mortgage. If that's the case, if this is all IRA money, I would run, don't walk away from that accountant personally. The second scenario I wondered is,
You're saying if I'm inheriting $300,000 of IRA money.
yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't give
I
a
bet
third
he
of it.
would have told us if it was IRA money.
Yeah.
This is a sophisticated enough question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
But
assume it's cash.
All right.
the
assuming
other
it's cash.
scenario I wonder is how does this impact your decision to draw Social Security? How do you optimize Social Security? But anyway, I would build out that 5-factor retirement plan, look at it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this, and like you said, $1,500 a month. My brain was saying at least $1,000 a month. So if I took $195,000, paid off my mortgage, I have $1,000 a month to work with in theory. Or you could make it's almost like getting $1,000 a month pension for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So you're talking about X's and O's or what, just run the calculator and give me the cold, hard calculus. I do believe the other thing is you're doing the T-chart, you have to consider, is there an emotional benefit to having the mortgage paid off or being able to do the I'm debt-free scream? Because that's the thing that you have to factor in. And this is where, Jeff, I would make sure that before I do anything, there's no daylight between what I think and what my wife is thinking. Mm-hmm. Because if she's thought our entire marriage, all she wants is the house to be paid off, and I have an opportunity to do that, and I don't do it, and what's the risk with not doing it? That's where this could be very interesting.
Here's how I would hope some of the conversation with your certified financial planner would go. It would be them asking you questions to understand more of what the retirement goal looks like and how the house even plays into it. You were kind of alluding to that, right? Yeah. But even asking questions, is this even the house that you want to live in
I was
retirement?
thinking that too. If you pay this thing off and all of a sudden you say, I didn't even want to be here anyway. Now, now you're thinking, well, shoot, I could go get a $200,000 mortgage now on a bigger house, a nicer house, and you're right back where you started, just with higher property taxes.
But here's
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, but the other thing is I wouldn't be thinking about that because we were just talking about what you and your wife might want to do. Your wife might want to say, I've always wanted a nicer house, and this is the opportunity for us to have a nice house. So this is where you go back to the very beginning and say, what are your priorities? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because because you haven't said a nicer house is my priority, but there's all, as we discovered in the first segment, there's all kinds of possibilities. There's a pretty wide range of what I could do with this house. But the question is, can I use this money to push the wagon up the hill and then put a rock behind the wheel so it doesn't roll back down the hill?
And that's what Jeff is most focused on, right? He's saying, I don't have a lot of time before retirement. It sure sounds to me like retirement is probably one of his biggest priorities, and he doesn't have room to have any missteps or, have dollars slip through the cracks. And to me, if you pay attention to the rate of return that you would get by putting this money on the mortgage, we can quantify it. Yep. It is a certain thing. You're going to save 4%. Boom, done. It's an easy calculation. And so essentially, by dumping this money on the mortgage, you're going to save yourself 4%. And if Ben Franklin was right that a penny saved is a penny earned, 4% is your earnings for it. I would ask the question, is there a better place to earn something even better than 4%? And certainly, over the long term, growth-oriented investments that maybe mutual funds that are tied to the stock market, we would expect those to be able to do better in the long term. And if you can handle the roller coaster ride that earning something better than 4% will take, then that might be what it is required for you to be able to make your retirement goal achievable.
Yeah.
But you're only going to know if you're talking to your certified financial planner and you're building a plan and testing.
Yep. What about the idea of feathering this into your tax shelters? All of a sudden, ramping up your 401k contributions, getting it all Roth, so you never have to pay tax on it again. Contributing to the Roth IRA this year, you just missed a window to do last year and this year, but starting to throw it all into your Roth 401k. What do you guys think about that?
I love it, and I would make a list of what are the tax shelter. Well, we're prioritizing what's my most important goal. Sounds like retirement. Because I still like the 529 plan, but if I'm focused on retirement, it's probably not the 529 plan. So you say, well, what is it? It's the retirement plan at work. If my wife has a retirement plan at work, if we both have a retirement plan at work and we're both 62, we can each put in $31,000 into a retirement plan. So if I put $31,000, that's 62 grand. Now I can look at also funding IRAs. We can each do $8,000 in an IRA, whether it's a traditional deductible IRA, a traditional non-deductible IRA, or a Roth IRA.
You know, the interesting thing about maxing out retirement plans at work, and pay attention to not just the contribution limits, but the catch-up contributions or even the super catch-up contribution limits that are available out there when you're contributing to these plans. But here's the point. That has to come out of your paycheck, right?
Yep.
Right.
And you have to decide that early enough in the year and just go hog wild on squeezing your paycheck down so that all your money is going into the retirement accounts. And then what are you going to live off of?
Yep.
Well, you're going to live off the $300,000. And you better have an awesome game plan for managing that cash flow then. Because this will be a different situation than just waiting for a paycheck to land in your bank account. Now you have a pool of $300,000 available. You could overspend real quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so don't put that $300,000 in your checking account.
Yeah.
Put it in a separate account and feed it back in as if it's just salary replacement.
Simulate the paycheck for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Okay, and we're bumping up against the clock here, but I would you do... okay, guys, you've really confused me. You haven't helped me at all. I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just put half of it on the mortgage. I don't think I would do that. Because with the mortgage, with that game plan, whether you say the math doesn't work, you shouldn't do it, or emotionally it does work, you should do it. You're freeing up a payment, and so just saying I don't know what to do, I'll split the difference. It's not going to free up a payment. That's not going to help you. There's another perspective, and then we're going to consolidate and give you direction on exactly how you would know. How would you get to a great answer amongst what we've been talking about, a range of really good options? How do you know which one's best? We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. I don't know if it was listenable, but that was a fun segment. No idea. It's probably terrible.
You just like arguing.
I do. Not in a we're getting heated, but let's talk about the different angles.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't. I mean, if I was going to pay down $100,000 on the mortgage, I would re-amortize.
But here there is a scenario, and I want to start with it. And so if you just humor me for a second, we'll start with a scenario, and then we'll go back to the context of T-chart it, work with your CFP, look at the math both ways, look at the tax strategies, determine which one is closest in line with the path. And that's what we need to say. But there's one last option that we haven't considered yet. It's really a blend. Here we go, third segment, and then we got to get into the other great question. Man, can we talk? We can talk all over the place. It's amazing.
Can we land the plane, though?
I don't know.
We're can fly the plane, but can we land it?
Wow. It's impressive if it wasn't so sad. Here we go. Third segment. Should I tee up the next question? Ooh, yeah. investments held outside of your tax shelter, could they cause you to pay more for your Medicare Part B and Part D? And if they do, and the answer is yes, if they do, what do you do about it? That's what we're hitting right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Cohorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Cohorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. Wrapping up the first question, which we've taken a long, windy road to get there, and that is Jeff. He's 62, no debt except a mortgage at 4%, $195,000. He's about to inherit $300,000. He's behind on retirement, and his accountant said, just pay the mortgage off. We've talked about the range of options and really have started to tee up, well, how would you answer? I'm gonna throw one more potential strategy out there. Jeff, you didn't tell us when you want to retire. What if you did the math to say, if you can continue to make your normal mortgage payment between now and retirement, how much would you need to put of the $300,000 onto the mortgage so that your continued payments over the next 3 years or 5 years until you retire had the thing paid off? And if that meant of the $300,000, you only put $150 down on the mortgage, and that left the other $150 for you to feather into your tax strategies, your tax shelters, so that you both benefited on taxes today and positioned as much of this money to grow tax-free for your future or to benefit the next generation for taxes. You could potentially combine both of those ideas to arrive at retirement debt-free and have that basically $1,000 or $1,500 a month pension for the rest of your life, reducing what that lifestyle, what that spending number is in your retirement 5 factors, while also positioning these dollars during the last few years of your career, optimizing them for your tax shelters. And if you combine that with the last idea of, well, how does that influence how you optimize Social Security? It's really possible that Social Security, instead of being a third of what your retirement income will be, actually could cover most of what your retirement need is.
Because you eliminated the payment.
Correct. And that's my, if you followed me and said, well, Mike, that's ridiculous. I didn't realize you were that dense. Well, part of the secret to that is, well, if you keep the monthly payment for the rest of your working career, you reduce the risk of lifestyle creep. Meaning all of a sudden this payment's gone, but I'm still working, so therefore I'm gonna start going to Culver's more than once a week, or whatever it is.
That's right.
Right? You keep a governor on your lifestyle, assuming you're living the life that you're called to, but also assuming that lifestyle is sustainable in retirement, while letting your Social Security grow because you've delayed it and you're working a few more years.
And you have to decide for yourself. You know your own nature. If all of a sudden you had a mortgage payment wiped out, you have $1,500 more per month in the budget leading up to retirement. If you know, I'm probably likely to start spending a big chunk of that $1,500 every month, and that lifestyle creep is going to happen. One way is, as you said, to schedule yourself or pace the payoff of that mortgage so that the mortgage goes away as soon as your paycheck goes away. Just time it well. And that's an easy calculation. Your certified financial planner can help you with that. The other alternative is if the mortgage goes away, you immediately increase your contributions to other accounts so that you're kind of sucking up the liquidity or the margin that you had in your cash flow. So you're less likely to spend it at Culver's and more likely to actually have it build up in an investment account somewhere.
But here's the thing. So how do you know? Oh, that's an interesting idea. How do you know? You run the miles. I mean, this is why you do planning. You build out those 5 factors, you T-chart it, you look at, well, what if I do all this? What if I do all that? What if I split the difference? And you go back to what Josh said that I was teasing the guys about, going all over the place and not answering my question. But no, you do that. Well, which of those options takes you the furthest down the path of your goals? But you've got to lay them out. Don't just speculate. Don't just hunch and, toss some grass in the air. Which way's the wind blowing? Map that out with your CFP, someone that's a fiduciary, cares about you, and wants you to achieve your financial goals. That's the approach.
Your certified financial planner needs to be helping you build the plan that is for you. And I'm reading between the lines here a little bit, but the advice that was given to Jeff from the accountant was pay off the mortgage. And that could be advice that is made in the image of the giver. That might be the nature or the opinion, the philosophy of the accountant. Maybe they're very conservative by nature and think debt is just bad, and that's the best thing that you could do, as opposed to taking the time to understand really what is best for you based on the goals that you've set, and let's craft a plan to get you there.
Yep. All right. Boy, can we talk. That was long. It was long to answer that one, but hopefully helpful, and hopefully you can find yourself there as well. Next question here is from Thomas. Here's what he said. Hey, really enjoyed the video very much. Here's my question. I'm 72 and a half. The last few years, my investments have paid around $30,000 in capital gain distributions, and I was able to keep my modified adjusted gross income below the required IRMA limit, income-related monthly adjustment amount limit. However, in 2024, last year, the mutual fund paid a huge dividend and capital gain distribution of $120,000. Now I have to pay IRMA. Is there anything I can do? Is it a good idea to shift this money into a tax-deferred annuity or a tax-exempt municipal investment? Thank you very much. So there's a lot of jargon in there. So we probably need to state some definitions and then tackle this thing.
How often is it that IRMA just rains on your parade? Like, this should be a fantastic thing. My investments are doing well, and the portfolio's benefiting, and then I find out that it's going to cost me dearly. And these IRMA rates, if you're not familiar with it, this is basically a table that shows the amount of income that you have is going to determine the amount you'll pay in Medicare premiums when you're in retirement. And that's where you're getting your health insurance through the government. It is essentially a form of means testing. And if you've got big income, you're going to pay more. And so that feels an awful lot like a tax in a way. I know that it's a premium, but you had more income, you paid more. That feels like taxes, right? Yeah. And so this is just an example of where sometimes, depending on how you structure your investment portfolio, you can swing from year to year on where your income is falling, sometimes unpredictably. And you want to be able to take control of that and have a game plan for where you peg yourself. And, in this case, we want, obviously Thomas is trying to keep his income low enough that he doesn't have to pay these extra fees.
I mean, you mentioned it. Control over your income so that you can manage your tax picture, you can avoid surprises, you can avoid IRMA. And you might say, well, gosh, you don't have any control over that. Well, sometimes you do. You have great influence. And like he's saying in sort of the second half of his questions here, should I just repurpose these dollars into a tax-deferred annuity or tax-exempt municipal investment? Let's set the table here. Capital gain distributions. Mutual fund capital gain distributions. What in the world is that?
Well, okay, so this is an example of where investments that are not tax sheltered, not inside of an IRA or a Roth IRA or anything like that, money that is growing and it's invested and it's generating maybe interest, maybe in this case capital gains, you have to count that as income in the year that you receive it. A lot of people don't realize that if you have mutual funds outside of those Roth IRAs, the mutual funds don't pay taxes. Instead, they push income through to the owner of the mutual fund, which is you, and you have to pay the taxes. And that sounds crummy on the surface, but it's actually a good thing because you don't want your investments paying taxes and you paying taxes. It'd be better to have them just happen at one level, and it's always better if that's at a personal tax level as opposed to corporate rates.
Yep. So this is a sign that this is an actively managed mutual fund, okay? Because within that mutual fund, let's say that you didn't sell the investment, but within it, there was Apple stock was held, and it was held at a low level and then ultimately sold at a higher level. You have no control over it. You had no warning. You have no control over it. And it sounds like this year a lot more was sold. Well, that's an actively managed mutual fund, and that's that's not what you need to hold. You could hold something else that is more tax sensitive and doesn't pass through those sorts of capital gains. You mentioned tax deferred annuity, tax exempt investment. There's other choices as well. And so what could you do? What are your options? What other choices are more tax sensitive? We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. What in the world was that?
Oh, they're
What in the world just happened?
they're working on the alarm system,
Oh.
and so it doesn't matter if my phone is on silent mode. That overrides everything.
Pushes through.
Wow.
Interesting.
I figured. I mean, I know
I
you weren't
thought
doing
your
that on
Apple
purpose.
Watch or whatever was warning you if something's happening there.
I know. I was like, are we carbon monoxide? Kevin just left. Buddy, save us too.
What's that ticking
That
sound?
alien?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is, we all know the Apple severe weather alarm. Like, it's just, what's the alien attack alarm? Like, do they have that?
I think it'll sound a lot like that. So, but here's the issue though, because he's asking, do I do anything with this capital gain, the dividend capital gain of $120,000? Well, if it was paid through and reinvested, there's nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't.
His basis went up.
Yeah,
and-
that's just an accounting transaction. That's not.
Right.
I don't. All I did was adjust my basis there. I didn't get an extra, because the confusing thing is it sounds like, hey, I got an extra $120,000 last year. I didn't.
No, I think what he's saying is there anything I can do with the taxes?
Right.
And with the implications of now I didn't do anything and I don't have $120,000 in my hand, but I do have to pay extra on IRMA.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
So the solution will be sell shares and create more gain. So do we? Okay. When are we gonna talk about this IRMA surcharge?
We're talking about it right now. It's 4
Get
segment
into
though. Land on the plane.
So hold on. His IRMA exceeds 266, but in 2025 for joint it's 272. If I'm reading that right.
Do we know it's joint?
No, but that's, I mean, if it's single, the range is 165 to 500. If it's joint, it's 212 to 272.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can look at last year's, but anyway.
I think his point though was that he's moving into a higher tier
Yeah.
than what he's been in.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the income, 90,000 additional income is going to move you possibly where there was no IRMA, and now you're into the
You're
second tier,
tier,
third tier.
Yeah.
So I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but
Okay.
Kevin, yeah, you mentioned, hey, the solution to this problem is actually could create more pain.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you've got to make a choice here at 7.5. Do you bite the bullet and walk right into the problem this year to have more control over it in the future? Or do you say, nope, this is just unfortunately how it was built and I have to deal with it? Let's hope it doesn't happen again.
Which rake do I step on?
Yep. I mean, that's really,
And do we talk
That's the
about
conclusion.
that this isn't going to, I mean, the problem isn't going to be this year.
It'll be
yeah.
It's 2 years later after the fact.
All right, here we go. 4 segment, land on the plane. We'll hit that, and if we're winding down, we'll filter in another question. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in this KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. Just go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, turn on notifications there as well. We have every episode of the Wise Money Show as well as A lot of other content, Next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week. Over 1,500 videos, millions of views there. So make sure you go to YouTube, search The Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there. Talking about Thomas's question, it's a technical one. He's 72 and a half. In the last few years, he's got some investments outside of his tax shelter, so outside of Roth IRAs, outside of IRAs, outside of 401ks, and they've been paying a little bit of capital gain distribution, a little bit's a relative term. To him, it's been around $30,000 a year. But in 2024, it paid a capital gain distribution of $120,000. All of a sudden, that's going to cause him to pay a lot of IRMA, extra surcharges for his Medicare Part B and Part D. Is there anything that I can do, he asked, and specifically an annuity or tax-exempt muni bond? I believe the modified adjusted gross income tax-exempt interest is really the only thing that you add back. So I don't think a muni bond is gonna help you. I'd make sure that you're working with your certified financial planner, your tax planner. The other thing that I would mention is, how old is Thomas?
72.
72, yeah.
And that means what happens next year?
Required minimum distributions.
That's right. I thought you were going to say he turned 73.
Well, that will happen as well.
So you've got to, this is where us nerds talk about multi-year tax projection and multi-year tax planning. Because while this is frustrating because it's outside of your control, you didn't act and do anything that caused these capital gains. This is the nature of a mutual fund structure for actively managed mutual funds. And yet, it's likely that you're going to have another event occurring in your tax life that you need to plan, you need to be aware of, and then you need to say, well, in light of that, so what might my RMD do to my tax picture next year and beyond? And in light of that, what should I do this year? Because Kevin, you were saying sort of at the break, sort of out of frustration or exasperation, well, listen, if you want to do anything to repurpose these dollars or reshelter these dollars into a more tax efficient investment, means you have to sell them, which means you're going to create a bunch of capital gain. So you're kind of stuck. Well, you might be stuck depending on how much gain, or maybe you bite the bullet this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would look. This gets in. This is level 201 of mutual funds, but I might look, because if I've been paying taxes on $24,000 to $30,000 a year of capital gains every year, that's a cashless transaction. So basically, that's passed through to me, and I pay taxes on that. So in that cashless transaction, I'm adjusting my basis as I go. So I would want to look and say, well, what is my basis? Because if you said, should I reallocate these dollars to a municipal bond fund, a tax-deferred annuity, if you could sell some of these shares of this mutual fund without an issue, then you might want to do it. As a matter of fact, if there was a meaningful gain that was passed through last year, look, maybe you could sell shares of this fund at a loss.
It depends on your basis, when you invested in. Yeah.
You know, this is one of the downsides to mutual funds is you don't know what activity is happening within the portfolio. It's not like they're consulting with you every day on whether they really should sell that Apple stock that they've owned for 40 years. And going to capture a huge gain that gets pushed through to you. This is where a lot of times when people have significant assets that are not tax sheltered, sometimes they need to be thinking about direct indexing or working with a separately managed account manager who will buy individual stocks, and you can just have more tax planning control. Because you can choose, hey, there are some investments that have run up in value, and I want to make sure that this is not the year that we sell because I've already got this other income elsewhere on my tax return. I don't want to exacerbate a problem or take myself up to an income level that does exactly what Thomas is talking about, and that is push them into a range of having to pay more for their Medicare premiums.
And then lastly, his last question here about, should I do a variable annuity or should I do a munis? We already addressed that. Annuities are a tool. You got to be super careful whether that makes sense, because there's a lot of restrictions, and at that stage of life, 72 and a half, I can't stand that idea. I can't stand that idea. And so are those your only options? Exchange traded funds. And I know some of you are thinking this and have been screaming it into your speakers here. Exchange traded funds. Those are investments that can that operate very similarly to mutual funds with a couple of distinct differences. And one of them is, while they could pay a capital gain distribution, they also have a special tax treatment where they don't have to. Where mutual funds, they have to. And most exchange traded funds are, it's just assumed that they will never pay a capital gain distribution. And therefore, I would want to look at that. Now, you would have to determine if you should bite the bullet and realize capital gains, if there are any, by selling. But you've got more choices than just the couple that you mentioned. And therefore, again, I'd want you to work with a certified financial planner who's doing comprehensive financial planning, because they will lay out the potential tax ramifications, do that multi-year tax planning to look at RMD and those considerations when you're looking at today's choices. But then they're also going to be a fiduciary on your investments. And they're not just going to look and say, well, here's the one solution that I have, so therefore this is the solution that's right for you. They're going to be objective and say, all right, what are the range of options? Let's try this one on. Let's try this one on. What do you think makes the most sense, brings the most synergy to your financial life? So great question. And for those of you that say, I'm nowhere near that situation, are you intentional about how you're structuring your tax shelter strategy to help minimize or limit the potential impact of IRMAA in the future or capital gain distributions? Be intentional about that. Going to sneak one more question in here. Got just a few minutes, guys. It's a direct one. How do I know if my Series I bond is fixed or variable? Now, I want to hit this one sort of, we've had it in the queue for a while, but it's a timely one. Okay, so Series I bonds, these are savings bonds. Sounds really simple. They're one of the most complicated investments out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Series I stands for inflation. And what that means is this is a savings bond that has an interest rate with two components. Based on when you first invested, which is $10,000 per year is the limit per person. You can get creative and do a little bit more than that, but think 10 grand. You lock in a fixed rate for the life of that investment. But then there's also a variable rate that changes every 6 months based on inflation. So how do you know if your I bond is fixed or variable? Yes.
It's both. Right?
It's both. You're going to have both. You want to go back and look. You're going to log into Treasury Direct and look to see what the fixed rate is. If you were, these became very popular in the aftermath of COVID, when we all knew there was inflation, we all knew what caused inflation, and yet the Fed was saying, there's no inflation. We're keeping rates really low. And what that meant is these I bonds were paying 5% interest, 7% interest, over 9% interest, while your money market, your high yield money market, was paying next to nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, at that time, the fixed rate was 0, but the variable rate was very high. Well, now that variable rate has come way down. And between right now, if you were to invest new money into an I bond, your fixed rate is 1.1%. Your variable rate is such that annualized, you'd have about a 4% return. And you might say, well, that's nothing compared to what it was paying. These things are still garbage. Hang on. That's about what the high yield savings rates are. And if the Fed starts lowering interest rates, your money market, your high yield money market might start going down in interest, where this I bond that you're holding might do very well. Work with your certified financial planner. If you held I bonds back during those COVID days, there's no fixed rate. You might have already gotten out. You might get out now. Work with your CFP. There's tax consequences. But for new dollars, I bond is, I'm going to say, back on the table, even though it's not anywhere near where it was in the past.
Yeah, and to your point, Mike, it is incredibly complex investment. There's a limit to how much I can put in annually. Lots of stuff.
Yeah. So complicated. Work with your certified financial planner. Look at all 6 areas of your financial life. If you had the I bond in the past, there's tax consequences. If you're considering investing new dollars, where does that fit in your financial life? Work with your CFP. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.